The show of my work is called Rock Dove Song. The title comes from a very personal experience I've had with a mental health issue in the period of December 2012 to April 2014. I had a number of traumatic events happening to me in quick succession, and this caused me to have a severe mental breakdown for a sustained period of time. I now refer to that period as my faulty phase, and somewhat lightheartedly, but it is a serious issue. And the reason why the show is called Rock Dove Song is because during this period I was terrified of almost everything that was happening. And I used to love the sound of rock doves at my bedroom window in the morning and in the evening. And even this started to be quite terrifying for me, inexplicably terrifying. So that's the reason why I've titled the show Rock Dove Song. Also, I think that we are experiencing a global mental health crisis. I think that what is happening with the increasing collapse and destruction of our environment has not only led climate activists to having mental health issues, but it's also led the ordinary everyday person to be experiencing the kind of existential concern that we have with our species' demise and the planet's demise. So this is causing, I teach, and I'm aware of what's happening with the youth of today, and people are battling with mental health issues. We don't live in an easy time, but I think that our time, although not easy, is also incredibly innovative. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the works that are on show. The work behind me is called Come Undone, and it is a reference to one of the Robbie Williams songs called Come Undone, and it's about literally coming undone, the breaking down. When I had my mental health, my faulty phase period, what happened with me was that I froze. You can either flight or fright. I frighted and I froze and I could not actually do much. And eventually, as it got worse and worse, I felt everything very somatically, very much in my body. And so as it got worse and worse was the fact that I felt my body completely dispersing and being taken apart. And then weirdly enough, when I started to, after I'd been in hospital and I got onto the right meds and I started to get better, I went up to the Drakensberg with a very close old school friend who was taking care of me, Maria, who I love to death. We were lying on the grass looking up at the stars, and because the berg is so pitch black and the stars are so bright, I had that connection when my solar plexus opened up and I literally felt connected to the universe, to the planet. And again, like in this painting, what happens is that the body, the physicality of the body disperses because we are made of energy. Everything is made of energy. Energy is connected to each other. We connect to each other, we connect to our environment, we connect to plants, we connect to animals. These are all invisible threads that hold us together. These are the issues that I've been working with in my work over the last 2 decades. I've been focusing on these invisible connections. So some of the materials that I use, materials are very important to me. I think that they hold energy, and so I often use earth from a very specific location to do with the content of my work. There is only a few little bits of earth in some of the other works here, but I also use my own urine, primarily because it's about marking and about claiming space, and it's also about a very animal-based action. Men seem to find it quite easy to piss anywhere. Women, it's much more of a problem, it's much more of a taboo. And so these are parts of the materials that I incorporate into my work. Since my mental health breakdown, I've started to incorporate psych meds. So I use things like antidepressants, basically all the meds that I was put on. In the first 3 weeks, I was put on so many different meds. In fact, I have an entire box full of them. And so I crush these up and I work with them in my work. They're also about issues around controls, subduing, containing. And I think that very often these things that try to contain us are the very things that give us problems, because we're not containable. We're human beings. We leak, we bleed out, we're not contained, and we should be able to not necessarily be contained. Although, on the other hand, I recognize that the meds have saved my life, but also with a lot of connection around me and support around me. The work is also primarily embodied. In other words, I don't paint something to look like something else. For example, I don't try and make photographic work. We have a camera for that. We don't need to make something representational of something else. So the images are done through my physical presence in the work. So for example, the work behind me, I lay on the canvas, I traced my body, and that was my starting point. All of the works have to do with shadows, traces, stains, imprints, prints, and so it's very much about being part of the work and not necessarily trying to make the work look like something. Yeah, just to wrap up, I think that the work is within the body of work. You can see that in even some of the photographic pieces, again, it's about me lying on photographic paper, exposing it to light and developing it. It's not about taking a photograph of me to make it look like me. Okay, so my take on it is that the Earth is in a hospice situation, and we need to address this immediately. Otherwise, we're not going to survive as a species, and we're also in a very bad mental health place. If we don't address this, we're also not going to survive. These things all go hand in hand. They are all connected to each other. Thank you very much.